Thank you, PS, Cabinet Secretary, Ambassador, honorable guests. I'm very pleased to have all of you in our home as the Secretariat that's delivering the Climate Summit. I really appreciate the amazing turnout, and your attendance is highly appreciated. Before I run through what we have been working on and what's coming, I'd like to start by thanking a lot of you who have been involved. As PS said, this has been a collective effort of a whole bunch of partners, including and in particular government, including Ministry of Interior, Ministry of Foreign Affairs, of course led by Ministry of Environment, Ministry of Health, Treasury, and a lot of other government partners. This is truly a collective effort. But it is only possible because the African Union identified the summit as one of the key activities for the Union on the climate agenda. And so this is also to honor the African Union, and they are allowing us and His Excellency, the President of Kenya, to host this summit. So a huge acknowledgement to the African Union. We are also particularly grateful to the German government because while we'll be gathering for a lot of things, today it's about the website, and they've played a huge role in helping us put it together. But although GIZ, Hannah and her team, it has been an enormous amount of work to get us here. And of course, there's the Crestwood team that will be walking us through that website. So before I talk about the summit, I wanted to acknowledge those partners and their help. If we go to the first slide. So what is a summit? What are we putting together? Some of you may have seen the slides, others haven't. So I will work with the lowest common denominator. So the summit is intended to design and catalyze actions and solutions for climate change. It's intended to converge on common priorities for global discussion. While it's an AU summit hosted by Kenya, it's towards a global discussion around climate. And as you can see, it will be a path or a step on a journey to Nganga, G20, and so on. I'm also delighted to mention that in partnership with the summit is the Africa Climate Week, which ensures that whatever we generate in the summit is closely linked with what is happening with the UNFCCC process. And so we'll coordinate the summit with Africa Climate Week. This will be September 4th to the 6th. And it will be hosted on the UN campus along with the other two venues, actually three venues. It's KTCC, ICRAF, and of course, Karura Forest. And who's attending? We've invited everyone. As you know, climate is a collective challenge. We must act collectively. So we've invited everybody who's going to contribute and to learn from the summit. I'll skip the part on registration so that I don't steal somebody else's thunder. Next slide. So the Africa Climate Summit will make propositions based on 4 key priorities. The first, of course, is that climate action and development are not separate, but must be thought about together. That low middle-income countries have a lot to contribute to the climate agenda. That we must ensure, we need to ensure that capital is optimized, and we must make sure that the capital flows in large quantities. It must flow in a very targeted way, and it must have the right risk appetite to unlock the climate challenge. Next slide. And of course, we have outcomes. There's no free lunch. So if we host the summit, we expect things to come out of that summit. And the first one, of course, is the Africa Leaders Nairobi Declaration. The second is a pathway to a new global financial deal that includes at-scale and for-purpose financing. The third is investment commitments, so that what we talk about is very closely connected with very clear investment opportunities. A lot of work has been happening in the climate space, and we want to announce those opportunities and how they're progressing. And of course, a roadmap to make sure that we are holding ourselves accountable to what we discuss and agree on at the summit. Next slide. The summit is predicated on green growth. As a continent, climate is a challenge, but it's also an opportunity to chart a new path towards development that is led in a green way. And so we've designed the summit to talk about the opportunities that the continent has to offer from an investment perspective, everything from energy and energy transition, all the way to natural capital. And that is buttressed by two key cross-cutting themes. One is all this needs financing, so climate finance. And the second is adaptation. On the continent, our largest challenge and where we must spend most of our intellectual and financial capital is on adaptation. Next slide. So we have an action-packed agenda. As I said, the plan is to host the summit, but host it in a way that leads to proper outcomes. And so we plan to have a ministerial day on the first day, leading to a very high-level presidential session on the second day, leading into the third day, where we will sign the declaration among the visiting presidents. We will then conclude the summit with arts and entertainment spotlight, which we're counting on the youth to guide us, because if you leave it up to me to do entertainment, you know what will happen. And that's the summit for you. And PS Ngeno, I'll hand it back to you. Always happy to answer questions at the right time. Thank you.